Well, let's just get into this, shall we? Because I know people that watch us are probably wondering exactly what I'm going to say when my Detroit Lions, well, let's be quite frank, they crap the bed this week in the NFL playoffs. So let's just get to it because I have a lot to say about it. And I'm sure a lot of you do too. So if you do have anything to say, let me know in the comments here on YouTube or follow me anywhere you find me on social media, which could be on Reddit at Too Boldly Pod or Facebook at Too Boldly Pod, X Too Boldly Pod, various other spots where you could find me as Cap Dan's Log, etc., etc., etc. Really love to hear your thoughts because mine kind of disagree with most normal fans. I'm more of a rational fan. Am I disappointed? Yes. Do I think the season is a disappointment? Yes. Do I think the season is a failure because they lost this week to the Foot Commanders? Yes. Do I think the end is nigh because they lost? No. Am I extremely, utterly heartbroken? Yes. But it's not it. It's not like this was their one shining moment opportunity. I think, and I have been proven wrong before, but I think I've been proven right about this particular version of the Detroit Lions that they know how to overcome, shall we say, to use the vernacular of the week since yesterday was Martin Luther King Day. They know how to overcome adversity. And this is the biggest chunk of adversity that they possibly could overcome. Did they blow the game? Yes, they did. They picked the worst game of the year to not be ready, not be prepared, not play with intensity, make all sorts of mistakes, which they did. And most people are blaming Jared Goff. And before you claim on me, he deserves his fair share of the blame in this game because you can't turn the ball over that many times and expect to win. I mean, I know they did it against Houston in the regular season, but let's be frank, that was the regular season. There would have been a tomorrow had they lost that game to Houston with all of those turnovers. This game, there's not a tomorrow. There's the next season. So yeah, Jared Goff does deserve some of the blame for losing this game, but is he totally to blame like many of my fellow fans are espousing? Absolutely, positively, he does not. Was it probably the worst game that he had played since the Lions got good? Yeah, it probably was. He didn't play good at all. It almost seemed like when the defense proved that they couldn't stop a cold, then yeah, when they realized that, Washington was just going to run through the defense, I think Jared Goff and the offense decided there was a little extra pressure on them to sort of pick up their game. And usually, when you step outside of the box and try to force things, bad things happen. And bad things did happen. Let's not sugarcoat it. It was not a good game. There was a part of me, oh, I would say into the second quarter, probably the pick that he threw in the end zone near the end of the first half. I thought to myself, this isn't looking good. I've seen this team all year come back, and I just didn't feel it. I was not very confident going into that second half. Were they still in the game in the second half? Absolutely, they were, but they just couldn't get out of their way. The defense, as battered and beaten as it is, couldn't even get a stop. And that's not to say that it's all the players' fault either, because the one time that the defense did kind of sort of rise up is when they were down at the 4 yard line or the 5 yard line, whatever it was. It was 4th and 2. They had just stuffed Washington. Washington was going to go for it, try to get the first down, try to go for the kill shot. And Detroit got called for too many men on defense. It falls on the coaches. They have to realize before that ball even comes close to being snapped that there's too many men. Call a timeout. Would have saved the Lions from giving the Foot Commanders an automatic first down at what was it, like the 2 yard line? And that pretty much ended the game. Didn't really end the game, but it really, for all intents and purposes, it ended the game. So, bottom line, no. All my fellow fans that I hear on sports talk radio and on social media just calling for Jared Goff's head, saying this is why Los Angeles gave up on him because he's never going to win a Super Bowl for them, and he's never going to win a Super Bowl for Detroit. These are the same jackasses. And yes, if you're watching that and you said this, you're a jackass for saying this. You're the same people that were chanting Jared Goff at every public gathering throughout Michigan until Saturday night and Sunday morning. Even before that game started, there were chants in Ford Field of Jared Goff. Your entire faith in him died with one game. Have we become that fan base? This fan base, let's be frank, has been starving for a good team for 70 years. Not quite 70, but pretty damn close. And yeah, and you have one hunk of adversity, and all of a sudden the sky is falling. It's over. It's time to blow it up. Yeah, I don't think so. You know who doesn't do that? Chiefs fans, Patriot fans of old, San Francisco fans, Pittsburgh fans. Yeah, I'm sure they get disappointed when their team loses, but they're not ready to blow everything up at the first sign of adversity. They get back to work. And that's exactly what I think this team is going to do next year. Trust me. They have done it before. You saw the growth just like I did from, say, the midpoint of 2022 when they really started to buy in and get the fruits of the message that Dan Campbell and everybody was conveying. And then we had 2023 where they made the playoffs. They won 2 playoff games. They were a half away from going to the Super Bowl. And then the wheels kind of fell off the you know the story, you know what happens. But my question is are you more disappointed over last Saturday's game, or are you more disappointed being up by 17 with one half of football to go against San Francisco, a half of football away from the Super Bowl? And the wheels came off the ship and they lost. Was that worse last year? Or was this fighting all year, getting a 15-2 record, having the number one seed in the NFC? Most people, pundits and fans alike, thought Detroit was one of, if not the best team in the NFL. And they lose their first playoff game to Washington, to a rookie quarterback. Was this worse or was last year worse? Because now we go into 2025 and we're going to need two brand new coordinators. Ben Johnson's gone to Chicago. Looks like Aaron, I don't know if it's official yet. I haven't really looked, but it looks like we're going to need a new defensive coordinator. He's probably going to be in the things that I'm seeing people, and I'm getting sidetracked here, but the things I'm seeing on specifically videos, I mean, everybody, including the Detroit News, are calling Ben Johnson Benedict Johnson or whatever the headline is. They're calling him a traitor because he went to the Bears. Well, you know what? Yeah, he had his thumbprint on the Lions offense, but for all intents and purposes, it was Dan Campbell's offense. Yeah, I'm sure Ben Johnson made a lot of changes to it or a lot of suggestions to it. And less than a week ago, people around here were calling him the greatest offensive mind in football. Here we are a week later, and maybe it's just people are still sour about the game, but they're calling him a traitor because he left to get a coaching position in Chicago. Oh my God, he went to Chicago. Well, you know what? I will put an offer out there to anybody watching this. Anybody say anybody. If somebody was to offer you a job, whatever it is that you do for a profession, say your profession's main rival, one of your main rivals, offers you $13 million to come work for them, I will guarantee you every single one of you will probably do it. Unless you own the company that you work for, then yeah, you're gonna go for 13 million bucks. So maybe you're still upset about the game on Saturday and after things pass, then yeah. But you know what I wish? I do not wish Ben Johnson any ill will. I kind of hope he fails in Chicago, but only because it's Chicago. I do not want him to come in and light up Detroit. I don't really think he's going to, anyways, because people have said, well, Ben Johnson's going to go into Chicago and he knows things about Detroit. Well, you know what? Dan Campbell and the rest of the coaching staff and even the players for Detroit know a lot about Ben Johnson too. So it's going to work both ways. So yeah, I don't understand. And as far as the defensive side of the ball, I truly think that next year, I mean, I can't imagine that you're going to have 22 players on injured reserve again next year. So if we get Hutchinson and a few of the pieces back that spent the most part of the year, and I know we're not going to have Aaron Glenn, we'll have somebody else as a DC. But I think if this defense was just half of what it could have been this year without all the injuries. I think next year could be just as fruitful as this year started out to be. And it could possibly go even further than that. So the end is not nigh. It's not over. Is it disappointing? Yes, very disappointing. But it's not over. It's not time to blow up the ship. Could I be wrong? Absolutely. Who the hell knows what's going to happen next year? Somebody could come out of nowhere and Detroit could take a step back. And you know what I'll do then? Then I'll come on here and say I was wrong. As of now, you can call me one of those fans all you want, one of those rose colored fans. But I've watched this team long enough. And I know this particular version of the Detroit Lions is totally different than any version that I've seen throughout my life. Because those versions, we got glimpses of possibly being good, and then something happened. And then from that point on, it just spiraled out of control. Things spiral out of control with this team. We'll put it this way: any of those regimes before this year, or the past 3 years for that matter, if any of those previous teams would have had 22 players on injured reserve throughout the year, they would have been lucky to go 8-9, much less 15-2. They would have just quit. There's any quit in this team. Kind of looked like there was a little bit in the second half of the game Saturday, but I think at that point they all realized what was coming. They ran into a buzzsaw that they weren't ready for, and that kind of goes to the coaches. So I have faith that Dan Campbell and the coaching staff and the players for that matter will stew over the offseason and they will come back in 2025 focused and ready. Am I saying they're going to win the Super Bowl? No, not yet. We have to see who they sign and who they draft and all of that stuff. But I will close with this. I will promise you, Jared Goff will be quarterback of the Detroit Lions, barring some kind of strange injury in 2025. And you know who it won't be for some of you? It sure as hell ain't going to be Hendon Hooker because I kind of will be surprised if he's even on the team next year. He could be practice squad, something, but somebody, if they put him on the practice squad, will take him because our small sample size of him playing, he's not the answer. And you can be delusional all you want because Jared Goff is going to be the quarterback of the Detroit Lions, at least for the next 3 years. So buckle in. It's going to be a fun season. As far as the final four of the NFL season, who do I take between Washington and Philly? I watched that Rams game, and if they run the ball like they ran the ball against the Rams, like Detroit was actually running the ball against Washington before whatever reason they stopped running the ball. Saquon Barkley is going to have about 800 yards rushing. So Philly's going to win next week in the NFC Championship game. As far as Kansas City and Buffalo, I know everyone likes to say the referees and Taylor Swift are all going to make sure Kansas City goes for the three-peat. But you know what? There's something about this Buffalo team. Games that they shouldn't win. And somehow they do. So I think this is finally the year that Josh Allen gets over that Kansas City hump in the playoffs. So the Super Bowl is going to be Philadelphia versus the Buffalo Bills. You heard it here first. Yeah. Well, you probably heard it somewhere else first, but you heard it from me right here, right now. Next week, Philly, Buffalo, there's your Super Bowl. Let me know what you think in the comments section, and we'll revisit this next week.